My Lords, my concern is safety and well-being living in a free and fair country. This bill, as it stands, will apply to acts which cause no injury or distress, and even to acts to which the recipient has consented. It applies across the range of life and in the home. The bill will criminalise expressions of personal conviction made without expressions of hatred or intolerance, or improper purpose, or coercion, or abuse of power. That is a wide-ranging interference with fundamental rights. To take an example, a 15-year-old teenage girl informs her gender-critical parents that she wishes to change gender. She repeatedly asks her parents to support her request for puberty blockers. They refuse. They seek to persuade her otherwise. This could demonstrate their assumption that a particular gender identity is inherently preferable. It could demonstrate that they seek to change their child's gender identity and that they seek to suppress expression of that gender identity. It would leave them vulnerable to prosecution. The government's 2021 conversion therapy consultation paper explained that our existing criminal law framework means that no act of harmful physical violence done in the name of so-called conversion therapy, and I quote there, is legal in this country. So we don't need to legislate for physical coercion. I turn all too shortly, I fear, to the interim report of Dr. Hilary Cass. It is absolutely essential reading. It shows the dangerous waters in which this bill swims. First, as Dr. Cass reminds us, sex is biological, it is determined by anatomy, gender is a social construction. In the short-term time available, gender issues are my focus today. And what I want to do now is give some direct quotations. Dr. Cass writes, "There is a lack of agreement about the extent to which gender incongruence in childhood and adolescence can be an inherent and immutable phenomenon for which transition is the best option for the individual, or a more fluid and temporal response to a range of developmental, social and psychological factors. Our staff have told us that they feel under pressure to adopt an unquestioning affirmative approach, and I emphasise this is at odds with the standard process of clinical assessment and diagnosis they have been trained to undertake in all other clinical encounters. Many of the children," she writes, "and young people presenting have complex needs. Once they are identified as having gender-related distress, other important healthcare issues that would normally be managed by medical services can sometimes be overlooked. Evidence on the appropriate management of children and young people, gender incongruence and dysphoria is inconclusive, both nationally and internationally." This is all direct quotation. "A lack of conceptual agreement about the meaning of gender dysphoria hampers research as well as NHS clinical service provision." Discussing sex hormones, Cass reports, "The long-term risks and side effects are well understood. These include increased cardiovascular risk, osteoporosis, and hormone-dependent cancers. Given the irreversible nature of many of the changes, the greatest difficulty," she writes, "centres on the decision to proceed to physical transition. Decisions need to be informed by long-term data on the range of outcomes. The NICE evidence review demonstrates the poor quality of these data, both nationally and internationally. Finally, regardless of the nature of the assessment process, some children and young people will remain gender-fluid identity up to early to mid-20s. So there is a limit as to how much certainty one can achieve in late teens. This is a risk that needs to be understood during the shared decision-making process with the young person. I add, Cara Bell and others are plainly victims of this. To conclude, for family members managing a young person with gender identity issues, the topic is complex. There will be well-meaning missteps. This bill is in no way suitable, creating as it does a far-reaching criminal offence. Thought crime comes to mind. The noble Lord Winston, is absolutely right. This is a mistaken bill.
Yeah.